Yeah, hi. So what are we at? Week 23?
23, I know that. It's taken me 23 weeks, but I finally know where we're at. And not sure how I feel about talking about the topic that we've chosen for today, but
Really?
I'm sure, lifestyle creep. What do you already know about the lifestyle creep? Are you victim to the lifestyle creep? Do you know someone who's victim to the lifestyle creep?
I think, well, I honestly think that everybody is. I don't think anyone is nailing this. But yeah, I'm actually excited to get into this topic because we've touched on it before. We didn't go into a lot of detail around it. And I think there's so much to unpack on it, what it is, how it happens, and that it is actually an important part of life, right? Like, it is okay to have lifestyle creep. Like, none of us, we can get into that more, but like, none of us need to be living like we're still at uni or like share house, right? Like, there needs to be lifestyle creep to enjoy your life as your money changes. But yeah, I think there's lots of pros and cons that we can get into.
So if we go back to the very start, the basics, because I'm sure there are a lot of people that might have heard the term lifestyle creep, but don't really know what it is or understand how it might impact them. So in your own words, Gemma, what is the lifestyle creep?
Okay, so lifestyle creep to me is when you have an increase in income, but that's absorbed straight away into your day-to-day expenses because your expense baseline has increased. So the only reason that they've increased is because you now have more money to spend on discretionary spending. So it's when you earn more and your expenses have gone up, but then things like the things that you have within your control. So it's not your rent and your groceries went up. It's that discretionary spending. You're spending more because you're earning more and your lifestyle is creeping up. So instead of actually making progress with your income, being able to now save or invest and do other things, your lifestyle is absorbing that extra. What do you think?
So if we think of like a real life example, imagine someone is at uni studying medicine, they're eating their 2-minute noodles because they don't have much time to be working because they've got to study so hard. And then all of a sudden, I don't even know these days what a graduate salary would be in medicine, but they're earning a lot more all of a sudden. And so in the past, maybe and I'm just pulling figures out of the air here, just to explain, but maybe they were saving $50 a week when they're at uni. And now, even though their salary is significantly higher or their income is significantly higher, maybe they're still only saving $50 a week. And so that is part of that lifestyle creep. And pros and cons to the lifestyle creep, isn't there? It has such a negative connotation to it, the lifestyle creep. You always hear it spoken about as if it's a bad thing. But then we were discussing instances whereby it may not be a bad thing. And you gave a really good example of maybe a cleaner. So maybe when you were at uni, you couldn't afford to have a cleaner. Now you've got a decent income, you can have a cleaner. That then allows you to free up your time to do other things in your life. So that may or may not be appropriate for certain people. But yeah, I think we really wanted to today focus on, as well as it being maybe not such a good thing with lifestyle creep, it can play a big part in changing your life for the better as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think as long as you're aware of it, and it's always about being really mindful with, like, you should be mindful in your spending. So when you're going to get a pay rise, being really mindful and going, actually, this is something that's going to add value to my life. This is something I've wanted for a really long time. And I've decided that, yes, I'm going to get this extra subscription, or I'm going to add a gym member, or whatever it is. I'm going to get a cleaner, or it's a conscious decision because you're happy to do that. It's going to add value to your life, and it's something that you're going to enjoy. And this is why I like to have a budget, because it tells your money where it's going instead of wondering where it went. And I think that's really important, that to make sure that you're doing lifestyle creep mindfully, because it's going to happen regardless, is to go, I'm getting a pay rise, for example, like I'm going to have an extra $100 a week. What is going to add value to my life to do with it? Is there something that I do actually want to spend this money on, rather than it just getting caught up in expenses? Or do I want to save half of it? Do I want to do this? So I think it's actually it's about being mindful and having a plan.
They are really key words, aren't they? Add value to my life. So when you are looking back at where your money has been going, it's a little bit like I've spoken about this before, the Marie Kondo of personal finance, whereby instead of laying all your clothes out onto the bed and picking out what brings you joy, you lay all your expenses out and pick out what brings you joy and get rid of the the extra, and then that frees up, in this case, less money to be doing even more of what brings you joy or moving you closer to your goals.
Yes.
Let us know in the chat as well. We've got a few more people that have joined us. If you have any questions specifically relating to lifestyle creep or comments around it. But while we wait to see if we've got any questions, do you want to talk about how to identify if it's become a problem, if the lifestyle creep has become a problem in your life or someone you know?
Yeah. I would say, so money is a tool. It's designed to, yes, it funds our lifestyle, makes food, puts food on the table, all of those kind of things, but you want to enjoy it as well. And so I think when you're getting pay rises and you're looking back and going, I'm still feeling financial pressure. I think that's when you really want to have a stock take of everything, do a cash flow critique, look at all of your expenses, look at your goals and go, why aren't I getting ahead? And then really the answer is always going to be lifestyle creep. As we talked about, there's things that we can't control. All of our expenses are going up across utilities, food, and rent. And we were talking earlier, and we were, it's your perception of value and your attitude to money changes as well. Yeah. You can kind of get out of touch with how you felt about money previously the more that you earn. So I think, just you will know if you're affected by it, because you're going to look back and you're going to have these financial pressures and be like questioning, where has my money gone? I've got so many pay rises. What's kind of happening? Because if you think about the assumptions, like social pressure is massive for lifestyle creep. But if you kind of think about what you imagine for a 20-year-old, how they're living versus a 50-year-old, there's all these assumptions that, so for example, the 20-year-old is at uni eating the 2-minute noodles, and they might have a car or they might not. And if they've got a car, it's probably a bit of a bomb. And then you expect the 30-year-old to have a mortgage, like 30s to 40s, to have a mortgage, to have a nicer car, but maybe it's still, a smaller car or something. You might have a family home that has 3 bedrooms and 1 lounge room, and you've got 1 TV. And then you expect, like 40, or you expect them to have a second lounge room, and then they might have a spare bedroom. And so there's all these things that is just kind of like expected, but really, does that actually add value to you? Is that important for you?
So I guess what I take out of that is what someone used to think was a luxury is now a necessity.
Yes. Yep. I definitely agree. And something that they could go without before, is something that they're not willing to. Yeah.
And so if we're spending more money on these discretionary type expenses, we've become accustomed to that being the new normal. I see the biggest downside is that money can't be used for other things. So that would relate back to someone's goals and the achievement of those goals. If someone had some really ambitious goals and they wanted to not be a victim of the lifestyle creep so much, what would you suggest would be your number 1 or 2 tips for them to go the other way?
Well, I think if they've got really strong goals and they're checking in regularly, that's going to be the biggest motivation for them not to get caught up in lifestyle creep. So if you're trying to avoid it, having goals is going to be the number 1 thing that I think you should do. So if they've already got goals, that they're already, so far ahead of that. I would be making sure that they're like checking in with themselves regularly and making sure that it's not happening without them kind of realizing. If it was me, I'd be limiting social media, all of that type of stuff where we see all day, every day that, people are going here, they're traveling, they're doing this, and you don't know what their situations are like, but that social pressure, that's a massive trigger for majority of people with spending issues. Yeah. We blame everything on social media, but it's just in your face all of the time, all of these wants, all the ads. So I'd be limiting social media. Get rid of it if you can, limiting it like email sales and stuff like that, because they're triggers. But having goals that you're really aligned with and really, really passionate about is the best thing that you can do. What would yours be?
Mine aren't going to relate to everyone, but there may be a time in your life where you do go through this. So the first is, if you do get a pay rise, to work out the difference between your old pay and your new pay and just redirect as an automatic transfer that extra into another account. It could be for something in particular. It could be for nothing at all at that point. And so you just continue to live off your old salary. So that's like a way that you can automate things so that you can put that extra pay rise to better use. And then that ties in with families who may be going through a period of maternity leave. So perhaps their income has either dropped to one income for the family or at least reduced if there was some paid parental leave. And so if they've survived over that period, then when that second person goes back to work, if you can pretend that that's not happening. So the same thing again, directing that person's income to something specific. So it's actually what we do now is we live off one income and then the second income is used for those bigger goals. So that helps to reduce the lifestyle creep, but it still keeps us in complete control. It's just a way to set things up to make that a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think if you're in that position, like that's an absolute position of privilege. And if you're in that, amazing. And that's how I've seen people pay off their mortgages so quickly, because when they've had a certain type of lifestyle, maybe they're on one income or they're like training or whatever. And when they have increased that income, it's all gone onto that and they've still lived exactly the same. And yet you would just absolutely smash your financial goals. So we did a few episodes back, we talked about FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early, and that financial movement. The people that are like follow that really, really ties in well with avoiding lifestyle creep. So that's something that they do very, very well. So yeah, if you're interested in knowing more about that and you don't know what FIRE is, you can look at the old episode. But yeah, that one, lifestyle creep there is pretty much, they're eliminating that completely. They're constantly reviewing their expenses and they're looking at reducing their spending as much as possible and increasing their income. So
yeah. And something that I have spoken to clients about in the past is around feeling some pressure to keep up with those around us, which we did touch on earlier. But how can someone resist that pressure and stay true to their own financial goals?
So again, I know I've already said it, but if your goals are actually your goals and it's not just, well, everybody else is buying a house or saving, but I think if those goals really resonate with you and they're your goals and you're passionate about them, that is like the number one thing that's going to keep you really, really grounded and keep you in your lane, on your track. But it's difficult. Like it's difficult when there's other people doing things around you that you perceive that that's bringing them joy and you think maybe, well, that will bring you joy. But a lot of time, and that's a mindset thing and how you deal with money. But like, for example, a couple of years ago, we traveled around like Australia in a caravan and we had, my husband's like old ute, and we had a caravan which was 60,000, a lot of money, but the minute we got back we sold it. But we would pull into a caravan park or we'd be sitting there in the afternoon and we'd see other people pull in, and my husband we just, it was like a game. We'd work out how much everyone's setups would be. We're like, that's a $200,000 caravan. And then my ex-husband would be like, that ute with all of the extras on it is like a $200,000 ute. And I'm just like, but it's just the normal, like, and everybody's got that set. And then you'd see like some oldies that had the caravan, like that looks like they got it 60 years ago, and they are just as happy. They are in the same places that we're in, but we have to have all of these extras. Like we've got an Xbox in the caravan and this and that, like ridiculous. Because I was just like, oh, their caravan's so much better than ours, their ute. But you know what? We're all in exactly the same place. And yeah, we were probably middle, but there was people that had, were towing their 6-year-old caravan with like an old like Ford Falcon, and they are in the same place as we're at, having a great time.
We do have a question in the chat, but before we move on to that, I just wanted to ask you as well about, let me start again. It can feel like you're being deprived when you say no to things and really focus on those financial goals. How can you navigate that feeling of deprivation if you're kind of going hard to work on your goals and avoid the lifestyle creep? Because there's obviously a balance, like there's one extreme to the other and then there's the middle. But if you are wanting to really knuckle down, how do you manage those feelings of deprivation?
That's a good one. You've already said the key word there. It's about balance, right? So maybe you set, so I'm big on having a big goal, but breaking it down into like bite-sized pieces. So maybe you have like mini goals that say, I don't know, say you're saving and you go, right, I want X amount. But every time I get to this little goal, then maybe I will go out for dinner, or maybe I will do this. The things that I don't value enough to do every single week, because my goals are more important. But yeah, I think don't deprive yourself. And if the goal is important enough, but yeah, money's a tool. It's there to be enjoyed. And one of the things, actually coming back to the FIRE movement, one of the things that people don't love about that is they live this life of like, some people, not all of them, and that episode goes into, you can take bits out of it, but people think it's just about extreme frugality, living a terrible life to get to this goal. But you want to enjoy actually your day to day as well. So maybe it takes you an extra year to get to your goal, but you've actually just enjoyed living. Like, tomorrow's not promised to anyone. I would hate for people to be so focused on a financial goal that they're not enjoying today because of it.
That also ties in with, I guess, the simple things in life and how we can actually find joy in every single day. And it doesn't need to be a possession or an experience. Like, really coming back to basics and focusing on relationships and the people around us, and just taking time to appreciate the little things. And it's sometimes easier said than done, especially when we've got such hectic lives. Speaking of hectic lives, that's exactly what the question in the chat relates to. The bad time of year, or I guess you could say the good time of year, being Christmas, the economic crunch. How do you project forward? This would tie into our last episode last week, actually, on the cash flow critique. So a cash flow critique looks backwards, but then there's that next step, isn't there? There's the looking forwards. And so you can call it what you like. For those who do want to project forward and do want to kind of come up with a plan or a budget, I do what we call a cash flow plan, and maybe we can have another episode, either one of our remaining ones this year or early next year, of how we can actually plan and do a cash flow plan. So I would say to that is, in order to project forward, you need to have a really, what's the word I'm looking for? Realistic understanding of what your expenses are. I think you can't really move forward until you do that. I did read a really interesting journal article. I've been nerding out lately on journal articles around making budgets and not using realistic figures. And it's still, even though you might fail because you haven't met it, the research suggests that the first 6 months your expenses are naturally lower because you're more conscious of it. He went into much more detail than that. But in terms of projecting forward, as has been asked, firstly, get clear on where money's going. I don't think that you can project forward without knowing that. There's too many instances where I will say to a client after doing a cash flow critique, how much do you think you spent on groceries, on eating out, on retail, on this, that, and the other? So far out. And even one category, I'll give you the example. I think I mentioned it last week. How much do you spend on your pets? Oh, $70 a week? No, it's $170. That's $5,000 for just one category a year that we have underestimated. So when you look at all the categories combined, it's normally far off the mark. Absolutely. Do you have anything to add to that in relation to Christmas and projecting forward?
Not really. There's heaps of different strategies that you can do to project your expenses and stuff. And I've seen some people that have like a month by month or even a week by week of when different expenses are coming in. So they know that month their expenses will be higher, that maybe when their rates or their car insurance or something comes in. Even though I love a spreadsheet and I've got spreadsheets, just spreadsheets, I don't go into that detail. I know what all my expenses are throughout the year and what they total. And then because I pretty much have regular income and enough to cover those anyway. So I just make sure that every week or every month, whatever, that enough for the years going in. So I never know when my rates are coming due or anything like that. But I just know that if I constantly put enough money in that bills account, there's always going to be enough. So I think you're 100% right. It's like you need to know what your expenses are and they need to be realistic before you can project forwards. But yeah, there's lots of different ways, and you just need to find what works for you. And the most important thing, other than knowing what your expenses are accurately, is reviewing it, because things like lifestyle creep, like your Netflix they change the fees, they go up, like all these little things just creep up, and then your budget's completely out. So it's not something that you can just look at once a year. It's something that you need to be updating, because yeah, they're going to creep.
Speaking of Netflix, I have had clients that have 9 TV subscription services at once. That comes into lifestyle creep. Yeah, you can have them all if you want, but are you actually utilizing them all? Could you look at going back to, not, uni days, but could you have one, watch that for a month, then switch?
You absolutely could, right? Like you could, like, so say you watch series. That was my stutter there, sorry. Say you watch series, instead of waiting and having it for 6 months and waiting for one episode to come out each week or whatever, why don't you just wait and try not to see any of the and just binge it? Yeah, exactly. And then you don't have to wait as well. But yeah, I definitely agree. That's happened to me. Like I have so many subscriptions now, and I'm like, I don't need all of these, but I can't cancel them because all of my friends have the logins and they'll kill me. I'm supporting everybody's subscription binges.
This is slightly unrelated, but I was doing a cash flow critique the other day, and I noticed within the same household unit, actually the same bank account, there were 2 Spotify subscriptions, separate ones. It wasn't the family one. So even little things like that you can pick up on.
You can have a family one and have 5 different accounts on it.
Yeah, but they had 2 separate ones.
Yeah, crazy.
So key takeaways from today would be the lifestyle creep isn't all bad, but it's something to be really mindful of, especially if it's impacting your life or your achievement of your goals. There are some things that you can do in order to avoid the lifestyle creep, and we touched on a few of those. What else have I missed, Gemma?
No, I think that's it. It's being really, really conscious and going, just because we can doesn't mean we should. And does that actually bring value? And just because you've been doing it doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. Like you can change your life at any time. But I think finding out your why and what you're really passionate about and what your goals are. And it might be that, you get really into the FIRE community or what that stands for, some of the concepts out of it, or you just get to the point where you realize that you don't need to be keeping up with the Joneses and you are just going to look inside and work out exactly what's important to you. Yeah. But the sooner that you do it, the better, right? You don't want to be having this realization at 50, 60. Like if you could have this realization and this mindset from the day you start working, imagine how differently your financial journey would work out.
Yeah. And it doesn't need to be
later,
like a regular lifestyle thing either. And sometimes it's spoken about like getting the new iPhone every year or something along those lines, switching it to every 2nd year or every 3rd year if you can push it. Those things obviously make an impact as well. But the key action items out of this that anyone listening should go and do, this is like the push for you to go and do it, is go and look at your expenses. If you're too time, there are people like me that can do it for you, but that is step 1 to determining how much you actually are impacted by the lifestyle creep.
Yes, and I would say if you want to actually keep an eye on this as well and really have more information on it, keep a budget, or just it doesn't have to be a full-on budget, but know what your expenses are every single year, but keep a record of that and look at it every year how it's changed. So the other day I found an old spreadsheet of mine that was like a budget from like 10 years ago. And it's so different to what my lifestyle is now. And it's very, very interesting. So that can help you as well. And of course your expenses are going to change, but it's pretty interesting to see how that's different. And you can remember how you felt at the time there and what was important to you at the time versus what's important to you now.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, I will see you next week. And we don't have a topic for next week yet. So if there's something that you really want us to talk about, let us know. And we will see you next week as well.
Great.
Bye.